Hello, I am Radagast with Global Mission of Peace TV Mystic View. This would be number 40. Hello, Shelley. How are you?
Hello everyone, and I'm very well, thank you.
So I think we're going to call this action or distraction. And I'm kind of working off the concept of, we're in Global Mission of Peace. And we finally got, I think, one of the things to sync, to partner with, and that was Standing Rock. Mary Beth just got back from her second trip being there, and has been giving us, her reports. And we went up there as, a combination of Global Mission of Peace and also something that you're part of, the Grandmothers of Gaia.
Mm-hmm.
But we went up there to help, and Global Mission of Peace did contribute funds through, our own people action, and helped out with food and supplies. And, we helped out with thousands of dollars. And also, assisted with other people creating attention, the YouTubes we've been doing, the shows we've been doing. And so, that's a form of being active. And sometimes it's called activism, but I don't like isms. So that's why being, acting. And then there's distraction. And one of my things that I've noticed about the alternative community, and again, I use the word community with some lightness. Sometimes it really is a community, and sometimes it's an audience. And how there just seems to be, it really seems like the alternative news or the free media is more, even though we mean to bring out stuff of substance and meaning, things to hopefully give you new inspiration to go out and do something different in the world. It just seems that more often than not, that the information is largely almost like a fix, like a drug fix. And so in many ways, although it seems like, oh, I'm really picking up all this information, but if it's without any action on that information, then the information in many ways, to me, almost acts as a distraction. You got anything to say on that?
Well, it definitely is a distraction, and it's very much the scenario of somebody waiting to be saved. Is sadly what comes to mind, is that they're hoping, okay, the next piece of information that comes across my screen is going to be the signal that all is well, and that, somebody has done something or taken care of it, some political leader or something. But really, feeding the vortex, what we are each putting into it individually, is going to be so critical. We all know that our reality is based on what we've already created. So we can look at it like past belief systems, for instance. But what are those belief systems built on? Predominantly, we are still existing in a high degree of fear. It's a very fear-motivated action. And so it's not just action. It's like, let's be discerning about what action.
Yeah. Because these are I've called, I think many times even in our shows, I've called what's happening at Standing Rock, the summit. It's like where people are coming together, and this new energy is finding kind of a locus or a focusing point. And the fact that there are now thousands there. When Mary Beth first went up, there was hundreds. Now there's thousands. And so these people have heard that news and actually gotten in cars, buses, whatever, and gotten themselves there. And that's why I do believe that that Standing Rock, which to me represents the humans, is going to prevail.
I agree with you, because it's spreading all around the world. It was hundreds, then it's thousands, now it's tens of thousands. There are large groups all rallying behind Standing Rock. And who was it? Donald Trump, dare I say, that said, let's drain the swamp. This is all sadly revealing so much that has been going on right in front of our very eyes all this time.
Well, I don't know whether you heard, I don't know how much of the news you can keep up on, but supposedly yesterday, Donald Trump had invited in all the media heads, of CNN, New York Times, both print and television media.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently he ripped them all a new one.
For what?
For false news, bad reporting, biased. I mean, he went, I guess it was to CNN. He said, you people he went to Mr. Zucker himself or something, said, I hate you people. I mean, again, this is third hand. They were under a gag order, so people who were there reported. So again, this is what the news is. So even when we're getting a report about what was said about something nobody was supposed to report on, you have to wonder how true it is.
Well, we can only hope that it's true, and we can take action and move that forward, because what we do know is that in the past, the media is scripted, and not just scripted in North America. It's so eye-opening to line up all the scripts on the same news, say an evening news, and you find that in London, in Holland, in California, in New York, in Toronto, they are all verbatim saying the same thing. There's so many YouTubes. Anybody that's interested, you guys can just, do a search, and you'll find so many videos that demonstrate this. But wouldn't that be sweet if this is actually going to open for something fresh? I'm almost, biting my tongue to not say that, because I don't want to fall into the let's hope for it camp. I'm all for backing it up with action and backing it up with actual certainty. And the certainty comes from within, because I know what I've done in my day. I know what action I've taken. I know what thoughts I have permitted to grow in my own being, and how they ripple out. And I know that I'm discerning enough to stop any thoughts. There's thoughts lurking all over the place, and you can get triggered all the time. But it's a pretty simple matter to just no, I'm not thinking about that. I've got something better to work on here.
Let me ask you, do you get trigger warnings before you get triggered?
I didn't even know what a trigger warning was, so I'm going to guess no. I do not get trigger warnings. Although
do you have a safe space to go to?
It's within me. I am my safe space. It's like the bird doesn't worry about the branch breaking under its feet because it has wings. It's self-reliant.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. We develop that self-reliance and that sovereignty, and that's how we learn about, where did that come from? Gee, maybe I have a God spark. Let me investigate that. Let me meditate on that. Let me think about that and see how that grows and empowers you. That's all.
It was interesting.
It's a threshold moment. It's a threshold moment, when you get it. And there's no reason to ever go back to chaos and to allowing random thoughts to take control of you. Fearful random thoughts, And, really big, huge kudos to all of the water protectors that have been able to withstand that barbaric treatment and stay in peace. How many people could do that?
No.
Oh my God.
That is profound. Well, actually, I guess you've seen that eagles have actually been attacking government drones, or
I saw that.
I mean, this is pretty amazing thing.
Fun. Yeah, it's fun. I like it. And you know what? It ties kind of into the whole Mandela effect. There's so many mysteries going on in our world right now. It's kind of hard to keep up. But what we do know is that our beliefs, our repetitive thoughts definitely create our reality. So even if we think that we're thinking peaceful thoughts and loving thoughts, are you doing it from a fear base? Are you doing it because you're feeling like you have a lack of, gee, okay, I'm going to envision this really pretty mansion, but actually what you're really feeling is the lack of the nice home. And so that's really what you're projecting. So I think education is going to really need to be a focus. Just teaching some really basic principles.
Yeah.
About thought, about what your brain and your heart combined can do for you or against you. And who's going to be in charge of that? I hope it's you. I hope it's the individual.
Well,
because there's plenty of other people and mechanized systems that are ready to take control if you don't have certainty.
Well, Gilad Atzmon, who's an interesting, he's a jazz player, but he was born in Israel, but he has kind of broken with his self-identifying, I guess, as a lot of Jews do. You know, he's a Jewish man, so he's speaking out. But anyway, he was saying that apparently there was an AI behind the Clinton campaign. This is a report he put out last night, and the name of this AI was Ada, A-D-A, Ada. And apparently all of their strategy, everything was coming off of this AI. So in many ways, one of the reasons why they who were participating in it were so shocked was because their computer, you know, they had put all their money in this thing that was supposedly smarter than them, and it probably was smarter than them, but isn't saying much.
Right.
And so he was saying that actually it was Ada that did this. So now we have this AI intrusion into decision making. But then I'm also thinking about the entrainment that comes from the TV and the creating of realities that are not part of when you open your door and you look at something a little closer to the natural world that isn't, you know, the same. I mean, it's almost like you could be watching an absolute horrendous riot or even a war scene on TV and be really involved in it. And meanwhile, you open your door and there's, you know, some kid riding on a bicycle waving to you and there's birds singing. And it's like, what world do you live in? Well, where your body is kind of a good place to, I feel, to locate your consciousness. And TV does this way of kind of taking you into worlds that you then, it's almost like inserting yourself into a storyline. You know, it's almost like, you know, you can insert yourself into the Lord of the Rings and who's Mordor, you know?
Well, I think it's a training program. I think it's teaching our population how to do that. They'll be much easier to indoctrinate into that entire system if they're already trained and addicted to it. It's like Dan Winter said when we were discussing the ayahuasca or any of the cannabis use or any of the DMT producing kind of drugs, is that if you're not engaging and creating that from your own body, you soon lose your ability to. It's like somebody on thyroid medication. Their thyroid stops working because they're being given it from an outside source. It's exactly the same thing. If you don't engage your sovereignty, you're going to lose it. Use it or lose it.
Yeah. And I feel that being active, doing something, I mean, I guess I probably said it many times that, you know, again, creation, after the world was created and we were created, creation was handed off to us. And so there's a certain activity to creating the world, and we won't be able to create the new world by watching videos and then typing somewhere about our review in 2 sentences or less.
Well, you'll be creating a world, but is it the one you want to be creating? You know, you got to look down the road a little bit and see what your action is actually creating. Is this really what you want? There's subliminal messaging. There's so much beyond entrainment that comes through the screen that people easily just fall right into it. Well,
I really feel that what we're looking at and what has been done, and is, you know, something that Joseph Farrell is bringing up, and I'm hearing it coming out of more and more mouths, is social engineering. And I mean, I feel there's been a lot of social engineering in history books, there's social engineering in holy books. But now to me, the front and center social engineering has become the media, whether it's TV or even Hollywood. I mean, you know, how often are the bad guys anything other than Russian or Islamic? I'll say Islamic because sometimes they're Iranians who are not Arabs. Sometimes, you know, they could be. I mean, that's the other thing is, you know, there's this whole for a lot of people. I've seen people call Turks Arabs, which they're not. I've seen them call Iranians Arabs, which they're not. So it gets kind of interesting. What you pick up from a medium that's not really interested in educating you, it's interested in training you and doctrinating you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, I really feel that this is why we want to be kind of active, you know, acting rather than being distracted. Because I feel there's a lot of distraction going on, and much of the distraction is actually a distraction by a world that you don't participate in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm, you know, don't we want to participate in a world? I mean, I want a world where the people that I'm interacting with, I know their face and I can give a hug to. That we can have a couple of anonymous people here and there on forums and other things, but we're going to get things done the old-fashioned way, showing up.
Let's create a world that we want to participate in. And that's such a great analogy that you gave about watching the movie, because this is the truth of our life. Even when it comes down to any fear that you're experiencing, if you actually take a moment and look around you, probably everything is just fine. It's probably all very much a projection.
Yes. I remember a couple of times in my life when I was just going through some times that I found personally unpleasant. And going off into bed and laying down, having all kinds of morose thoughts. And then one day I finally caught myself. I go, you know something, you're well fed, you're in a nice warm bed, and you're having all of these woe is me thoughts. And it's like, you know, it was absurd. I mean, you know, because you remind yourself that I could probably, I mean, you know, if you're near any kind of big town, you could probably take a walk and find somebody homeless.
Mm-hmm.
You know, here I am, oh, woe is me, in a nice queen-size bed, and somebody's in a cardboard box a couple of miles from you. And when you kind of when you can kind of get an observer status of the bigger world and just looking at your own self and you go, oh my God, you're pathetic. And then you realize, oh wait, that's me. Let's snap out of that. So I don't, you know, because you catch yourself going, I don't think I like that person. I go, well, but that's me. Oh, okay. I can just snap out of it. I can like myself again.
Right. I don't have to be that person.
Yeah.
And so much of that really happens subconsciously, that people are responding to those sorts of things or reacting. You know, as Eckhart Tolle would name it, the pain body, for example. It triggers you before you even recognize that you've been triggered, until you can catch it a few times, and then you're onto it. But you still have to be diligent enough to stop it, to take an action on it, to make a choice.
Yeah, and I think taking a little time to meditate and getting in, you know, what I consider to be the heart area, and connecting with source and feeling the love and the connection and even the eternity of it all.
Mm-hmm. I think that's great.
And then you start to kind of understand what it's like to at least feel a quiet bliss. You know, just that, wow, this is really special. And the more often then you realize this is where I really live. This is where my power is. This is where my God connection is. And the more that once you start getting used to that, when you start to stray or get pulled off, you realize that you might not be able to go, because sometimes you do actually have to get a little quiet time and go in there. But I do know if I can have just a few minutes myself, sometimes I can do it while engaged, but sometimes while engaged, it's a little hard to just suddenly pull out and go there. Mm-hmm. But once you make more of a habit of experiencing some bliss, the non-bliss becomes like a note out of tune. I mean, you pick up on it. It's almost like, wait a second, got to get the tuning peg out again, you know, and make an adjustment. And as you mentioned, creating, what we put into our vortex, what we put into that spin, and, heavy things, heavy objects disturb the spin, doesn't create energy. It takes energy to carry these things around. And I do notice that the world that is starting to appear before me is appearing from what I've put in there beforehand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, and that's what you said earlier on, what do you want to show up in your reality? And what's going to show up is largely what you put into that little personal spin of yours.
Right. I remember listening to something Dolores Cannon was talking about. She was addressing a very large group of people, and they were all, moaning about something and all fearful and expecting her to console them or something. She goes, I don't know what you're talking about. My life is fine. I've created a really nice life. So, but what you said about the quiet bliss is so important, because that's the same analogy as, the sun is always there. Maybe there's clouds in front of it, but it's always there. And that quiet bliss is always, always available. If you just choose. And some people will say, oh, I don't know how to do that. Well, then just be quiet and start feeling until you get there. It's really simple. Yeah. It's so simple. And, just to be really clear in your heart and in your mind, because we truly are, it's a collective. The whole planet, 7.4 million of us, are co-creating this reality. It really is a collective, but he who has the most certainty gets the bigger boat. So if you don't want to just be blown around like a dry old leaf in the wind, you better develop some certainty about what you want to think and feel.
Yeah, I think, I know I benefit from having a gnosis of source and connection. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't always like that. I mean, there was a period in my life where there was a few minutes of my life that I was an atheist. I had been an altar boy for 5 years, got to have any conversation I wanted to with the two reverends we had, got to ask them any question I want, and they could give me any answer they wanted. And the answers were less than fulfilling. Mm-hmm. And so for a brief period, I said, if this is what the story is, there's no way that my cognition can work with this storyline. Mm-hmm. And then fortunately, I read a book called The Third Eye by Lobsang Rampa.
I love that book.
And which introduced me to a completely different, let's call it God concept. And although my concept would grow over the years, because it became not a good story. Oh, I like that story of God. Once you experience, then it becomes a gnosis. Mm-hmm. And so I really think that sometimes what kind of blocks people a little bit from the bliss is they're still maybe uncertain. You'll hear people say, you should fear God. And I'm like, why would I fear what I love?
Well, yeah.
Fear? No. To me, the only thing I would fear is falling out of my own alignment, and how ultimately, when you know the bliss of alignment, there's pain, and sometimes some behaviors might even create shame. I fear my own behavior and how it hurts, because I know what the good stuff is. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I just really, I wonder how many people might just be a little bit stuck because they have a kind of a cosmology or something where they just haven't learned the sweetness of going into that place. And maybe because like, oh, I've been bad, so I'm going to get scolded or something. It's like, you don't get scolded. You get shown. You get shown almost like you get into that perspective and you see things in your life and you go, I'm doing that, or I did that. Ugh, what do I do? Well, you don't do it again. And that way you can kind of forget it. And maybe you want to apologize to anybody that you can. And, move on. You know,
Right. But, you know, it's also, I think, important to have as much compassion for yourself as it is for other people. You know, as a parent, you don't, if your kid tips over when they're learning to walk, you're not angry about it. If the kid spills food when they're learning to eat, you don't get mad about it. That's part of the learning process. And we are all in a learning process, regardless of where we're at on the scale of how much we've learned. And that here we are talking about these universal concepts with our little three-dimensional beta brains. You know, when you can start to access a little bit beyond that, the realization that we're infinite, eternal beings, and yes, we are creators, but there's an awful lot of creation that's gone on before us to come into this density. And I just think that the more love that we can ground here in this third dimension, third density, that truly the lighter we become. Like lighter is happier. Lighter is happier. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Love is light. Light is joy.
I like the way you said beta brains. And for just to kind of like expand on it, when she meant beta brain, it wasn't like there's like another, like it's a prototype of a new brain.
No.
You're talking about the different, like kind of Hertzian frequencies. There's alpha, beta, delta, and gamma.
And theta a little.
And theta, right. And actually I meant theta instead of gamma.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's all there.
No, but I didn't mean to say gamma was not one of the ones I meant to throw in. I just got lost for a second. Thank you.
Right.
And so beta is our normal operating. It's our normal processing. Now, the interesting thing about watching TV is it tends to put us into an alpha state.
Oh, and what happens when you're in an alpha state?
You don't critically think.
And you absorb and you take in everything that's put in front of you. You just absorb. You could be easily programmed if you were in an alpha state. However, you could use it to your advantage. Or if somebody else is doing the programming, you might want to check into what they're programming.
Right.
You for.
I mean, I would say that many of my prayer states are largely close to an alpha state, but I'm the one bringing in the programming.
Yes.
Or, you know,
and additionally, the useful experience is to learn to keep that alpha open to beta so that beta is discerning about what alpha is doing and so forth and beyond. So that then we can have that communication with the oneness that we are on those much more expansive levels. And this is a reality that is accessible by many, many people on the planet, but for a lot of the population, the greater percentage of the population, they just think, oh, you're just like way out there. You're going to talk like that.
Well, I do know that people who are able to kind of negotiate those things generally I think they feel a little better, and they feel a little more empowered and in control of events. Not everything, but I mean, it's almost like driving a car. There's lots of things happening all around you that you have no control of, but you can certainly keep yourself within the lanes. You know, I mean, you know, so the control, I mean, I have to watch when we use terms because it might sound like, you know, oh, is that absolute? No, but you know, with, you know, I mean, this is the other thing where sometimes when we get into polarized thinking, it's like, is it this or is it that? No, it's this with that and this and, you know, got a couple of, you know, little dangly shiny things over here and
everything and nothing, basically.
But yeah, getting to be empowered, and to me, being empowered is very much just like being in full control of your car, and not texting while driving.
Yeah, not texting like, well, I like the idea of the bird, right? If the branch breaks, hallelujah, I'll just fly to another one.
Right.
We are infinite, eternal beings. We can do that. So anyways, we were talking about action or distraction. So if this is going to be of utility for our viewers, is this going to be a direction? Is this going to be just building some awareness on the difference between action, how important it is to take action? Or do you recognize when you're being distracted? Are you just comfortable and you prefer to be distracted? Or are you just waiting and hoping somebody else is going to come along and do it? Because guess what? We are the ones we've been waiting for. You know what? It's up to us. It's up to 7.4 million of us. But I think there's that many. We can handle this. We can do this.
I would think that's probably a good portion of the people who watch Mystic View believe that there are at least extraterrestrials or extra dimensionals, or probably in most cases, both.
I would think so.
And I know that some of the storylines or some of the narratives that were kind of running through the people who would be watching a video like this is that ET will save us. We get that. There are certain people who say that. I mean, there are certain people who channel different commands and, dear ones and, or whatever. And, but I know you have your own unique connections. I have my own connections, largely through the noosphere, I'd like to think. But I really get that there is a lot of assistance waiting for us.
Well, you have to take action and then you can be assisted.
Well, that's what I mean. That, in other words, they're glad to help us doing what we're doing. They're just looking for somebody to be doing something.
Right. Yeah. It's like, I'm happy to help my kids clean their room, but I'm not going to do it for you. It's your job. I'll help.
And I'm guessing that they realize that helping one person, like sometimes you get these people who supposedly have gotten a message to deliver to humanity. That just kind of sets up another prophet coming from the mountain. With a revelation. I mean, to me, it's a formula that we've been following since Mount Sinai. And so that's why action is so important. I think, again, they're not looking for one person necessarily doing it. I mean, they're looking for a movement. And I really believe a lot of the assistance that they're going to be lending isn't necessarily landing anywhere. I think there's a lot of energetic and other interesting ways that they have that they can help us, but there has to be something in process. Just like somebody coming along and seeing you doing something and you're struggling, and they go, "Can I give you a hand?" Because, but if you had just been if you had a real problem, but you're standing around hanging with a cigarette and it's not obvious you have a problem, nobody's going to ask you, "Do you need a hand?" So the whole thing is, it's not for anybody to suggest to anybody what you should be doing, but ask yourself, should I be doing something? What would I like to do? And if I would like to do something, and obviously I may not be able to do it alone. You may be able to, but we really work so much better in groups. We give each other energy. I mean, I know as a musician, if I have a few people, playing at an outdoor performance that I've done, about a month or two ago. We did 2 shows. The first show, everybody was kind of distracted, and I played to the best of my ability, but it was okay. But then all of a sudden, the second show, people show up, and you feel all this energy come into you, and it's another performance level.
Well, this is the truth, and this is something I have felt and known all my life, that it takes all of us working together, and that's was my instruction. The only way through this is that we do it together. And I've had that my whole life. So that is the truth. It takes everybody. Everybody is a participant. And nobody's here if they didn't come here with something to give and something to offer. And you can't just sit there and look at your neighbor and say, "Gee, I hope he's got something in his pocket. I hope he's got something up his sleeve." No. You look at your own sleeve and find out what you got, and then you share. It takes all of us.
So maybe I would just suggest for anybody who's a little curious just about something that's going on, there is a globalmissionofpeace.com website. With some, I think, can anybody look at the forum?
Yeah. Global Mission of Peace on Facebook. So
On Facebook and all, yeah, and just the, the normal.com site where people have listed the projects that we're about to get going with, and just maybe get an idea of, again, if you're watching us, we're part of Global Mission of Peace, but maybe you don't know what that is. You can go to a website or on Facebook and see some of what's going on, and maybe some of you want to reach out and hang out with us. We hang out once a week in the symposium thing. There's information for that on Global Mission of Peace to direct you to another website if you wish to subscribe. But I invite you to just maybe sniff around us a little bit, see if you get your interest piqued, and say, well, maybe I want to find out what they're doing. And join them as they're doing something. I mean, we can always be joined afterwards, but the time, I don't know if you can feel it, but it's time. Things are shifting, and in many ways, in the shifting, there's a certain polarization that I hope becomes so glaring. Everybody goes, enough of this polarization, and they go, let's get the unity, because this polarization hurts. It looks ugly. It doesn't feel good. And, but right now, I mean, I feel that. So it's not a time to be sitting in the middle. I feel moved to one side or the other, only if just to create the greater contrast, because it is when it becomes glaringly obvious that we're actually ripping apart in certain ways that we can pull together, because I don't think anybody really wants humanity to rip apart, other than those who have socially engineered us into these positions. And it isn't happenstance. There's a lot of planning. I mean, when you can insert engineering into books that are thousands of years old, that's what you call forward planning. And
there's been a little forward planning.
But once you see it, once you realize that the same people who inserted things into books thousands of years ago are still basically here through heredities, and that this is an ongoing plan. So if you have something, let's say certain prophecies, and then prophecies are made to happen, and somebody goes, oh, look, just as we said God would do it, God did it. Meanwhile, we put it in the book and we made it happen, but wink, wink, God did it, Although the prophecies are very interesting, because, you kind of have the prophecy, the books, and then you have the oral prophecies. And
prophecies are timelines, though.
But I mean, I guess there's prophecies that I see as a form of social engineering. And then there are prophecies that actually Spirit has given to people, and they carry them traditionally. And I feel a lot of what's happening at Standing Rock is oral or native prophecies being fulfilled. And I'd like to think that even for people who read Scripture with their heart, they also see certain things being fulfilled, because how you read Scripture is kind of like what you see there. And if you read it with your heart, there's a lot of good stuff. Matter of fact, they wouldn't be around if they weren't based on good stuff. It's a very good place to drop a few lines to hide.
Well, you were talking about shift, and shift is what creates the space. The space is there, but it gives you the awareness. Suddenly, by shifting, you can see the space, and you can see what you can create in that space. And that space can be sacred space.
Yes.
You can use that sacred space for negentropic return to the stem cell origin of your pure form, your pure source, because you are pure source energy. And so that's the shift. That's great. It just, shake things up a little bit so you can look at the world a little different, because you're going to see the space where you can create what really feeds your soul and what is going to be shareable with all DNA. Thank you, Dan Winter.
Yeah, Dan went there. I mean, he
Does.
there's a few simple concepts. Bliss, sharing,
I
um,
know.
and the spin this kind that creates this vortex that then creates a certain spin that creates a form, the implosive form, where you tap
Oh,
into 0 point energy.
yeah.
And there's a 0 point energy to run your house, but there's also a 0 point energy to run your day, yourself, your moods. And when you start tapping into that, you do it more and more. And like I said, even now, like I said, I'm seeing a divide, especially in America. But I'm seeing it also happen across. I mean, Brexit was part of to me, what we're seeing with the election of Trump. In many ways, what we're seeing is people. It's really, to me, no to globalism.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, many of the current governments have been pushing towards this one world, new world order, basically, where we are nothing. We are the gerbils in the cage, providing amusement and of course value, because we, as I've said, many times, we've said we are the value.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, but like I said, as we see that polling, that space in between us, we're supposed to be in there together. I can't coddle people that I think are acting out a little bit, but I can certainly have lots of compassion and say, I won't coddle you, but I will hug you. And maybe after the hug, you feel a little better, and that way we can kind of move forward. I mean, I'm not into sides. Sides are nonsense. They are here right now. It's part of kind of coming out of polarity. But I'd like to, I like to think I'm standing somewhere in the middle, looking for people on both sides to kind of come in here. I'm quite sure you're in the same place.
Well, it's sure, and I kind of stopped thinking about it like polarity. I prefer to see it more like the particle in the wave. To me, there's a lot more truth in perceiving it that way. You're the one and the many.
Mm-hmm. The wave is in motion. The particle is when you freeze it.
Yeah.
And to me, it's also perspective. I mean, if you would look at a wave coming at you, whatever the angle, it's going to look like a dot. If you look at it in its entirety, you'll see the wave.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oneness.
So I think we can sum this up. So action instead of distraction, unless you like to be distracted. But
Well, at least become aware of what is the distraction. At least be able to differentiate between.
And choose bliss.
Taking action does not mean sitting there reading a forum. It means participating in the forum.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with reading. That's going to happen. That's part of it. But.
Yeah, well, I mean, I belong in a forum where, like about 5 or 6 of us provide all the content and another 100 read everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. So
everybody's participation is valuable. Maybe some of them just think that they've got nothing to say. But you know what? We could be our own news. We could make our own news. Hey, this is what I did that was constructive today. Well, that's good news. Let's share that.
That is the new movement. I mean, there's this new thing called fake news. Now, fake news is what the media news is calling anybody who doesn't report the news like them. Mm-hmm. The premier producers of false news are now calling the free media the fake news. I do believe that's going to blow up on them. I think that right now I'm seeing where almost all this energy that they're putting into trying to make things stay the same, the more it blows up in their face. I mean, it's almost like they're having Wile E. Coyote moments.
Well, yeah, because it's not shareable.
That's true.
That's all.
Well, I'm really glad for this time to share with you, doing another Mystic View, Shelley.
Thank you. Likewise.
And I'd like to thank you all for being with us for Mystic View. And we will see you again next week on GMOP TV. Goodbye for now, and God bless you all.